Hello everyone, welcome to our story time. Today we're reading a book from one of our author friends. Let's see what we got.
Yeah!
Milton Visits the Bakery by Karen Magnan. Let's tell Miss Karen thank you for sending us this book.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
Milton Visits the Bakery by Karen Magnan. Illustrations by Heather Lawson. Milton was chained up out front under the great oak tree. This was where he spent his days while the family was at school and work. It was his second favorite place to be because he loved being outside, but his favorite place to be was the bakery across the street. He was put outside before the bakery opened. He was sitting there under that oak tree, staring at the back screen door, hoping one of the kids would come outside with a cookie for him. He could smell them, and he sure wanted to taste one. Becky was staring out the screen door at the big dog across the street. She kept giggling. Becky was a girl who was about 16 years old. She had something called Down syndrome, which made her have trouble talking, and she was not as smart as other kids her age. One thing Becky had, though, was a great smile and laugh. She was always smiling. There was an older woman who came up to Becky and put her arm around her shoulders. She said, "You like that big dog, Becky?" Becky nodded and giggled some more. The older woman said, "Would you like to go pet the dog, Becky?" Becky shook her head and went back into the bakery, which was where she was working. The bakery also served breakfast and lunch, and people with special needs worked there to learn skills to help them to get a job in the future. Oh well, the lady thought, maybe next time. She was about to go back into the bakery herself when she saw Milton's owner, or mom, come outside with fresh water for the dog. She decided it was time to say hello herself. The family just moved into the home about 2 weeks ago. From what the lady could tell, there was a husband and wife and their 3 children. She called hello to the woman as she walked across the street. The woman smiled and introduced herself as Kate, and then she introduced the big dog, whose name was Milton. Milton was very happy to have a visitor and was barking all excitedly. The other woman introduced herself as Susan. Susan said, "I hope you do not mind, but some of the workers at the bakery like to come and give the dog a cookie sometimes." Kate laughed. "I thought he put on a few pounds. That is all right. I am glad he has some company during the day." Miss Susan, as she was known by all the young people in the store, talked to Kate about the bakery and the clients that worked there, and she especially talked about Becky. She could see Becky looking out the screen door at her, petting the dog. She was hoping to get Becky to come over to meet the dog, and she kept calling her over. Becky was afraid, but another boy named Joey was not. He saw Miss Susan with the dog and came running out the screen door. One of the other staff said he could give Milton a cookie, and he could not wait to do just that. He yelled from across the street as he started to run. "Bob said I can give the big dog a cookie, Miss Susan." "Okay, Joey, he is a good dog, but just throw the cookie when you are close, just to be safe," Miss Susan replied. Joey got about 2 feet from Milton and threw the cookie, and Milton caught it in midair, much to the delight of Joey and Becky too, who was laughing from across the street. Miss Susan kept calling to Becky to come over and pet the dog. She hoped she would. Becky loved animals. They talked for a bit, and Joey kept petting the big dog, who kept licking him. Becky watched from the safety of the screen door across the street. The next few mornings, and again in the afternoon, Miss Susan would walk over Joey and any of the other people that worked in the store to give Milton a cookie. Everyone except Becky, who just stood behind the screen and giggled while watching. Milton was one happy dog. This went on for a few days. Becky still just stood at the screen door and giggled while everyone else took turns bringing Milton a cookie. Milton got very upset when everyone left him and would jump around, bark, and pull at his chain that was tied up to the tree. One morning, as everyone went across the street, Milton decided he did not want to be tied up to that tree anymore. There were cookies over there and he wanted more. He went running towards the bakery to follow everyone, and because he was such a big dog, the chain just snapped. Everyone else went inside the bakery except for Becky, who was standing by the door still watching Milton. Becky saw him break loose and laughed and said, "Uh-oh, Miss Susan." The big dog ran towards the door, and before anyone knew what happened, Becky opened the screen door and Milton went running right into the bakery. He ran straight to the cookie counter, reached his big head into the cabinet, and grabbed another cookie, and then another, and then another. Finally, Bob was able to grab Milton's collar and pull him out of the cookie cabinet and shut the door before the dog ate any more. Everyone was laughing, especially Becky. Bob still had the dog by the collar and started to walk him to the door. Becky reached out and patted the dog and said, "Becky, give Milton a cookie?" Bob said to her with a smile, "Oh, all right, Becky. You know I can't say no to you. Besides, we have to throw all those cookies out now that his big knucklehead just put his big head in the cabinet and ate half of the cookies." Everyone laughed, and Becky clapped her hands waiting for Susan to give her a cookie for the dog. Bob told Milton to sit, hoping he would do that and be gentle. Susan told Becky to throw it to Milton, but Becky walked right up to the huge dog and held the cookie out to him between her fingers. Oh no, this could be bad, Susan thought. Milton looked at Becky and then at the cookie and gently took the cookie from her fingers before gobbling it up. Phew, both Bob and Susan thought. Becky was giggling as she pet the dog's head while he licked all the crumbs off the floor, and then he looked at Becky and started to lick her hand. She bent over to hug the dog and he started to lick her face. Becky said, "I love you too, Milton." Since then, Milton pretty much breaks his chain or gets out of his collar almost every day. He runs over to his favorite place, the bakery, and Becky is right at the screen door to open it for him. Bob learns to keep the cookie cabinet closed to keep Milton out. They keep several cookies on a plate on a table to the side of the cookie counter. Milton had no trouble finding the cookie plate and quickly gobbled up every cookie and morsel on the plate. Sometimes Milton goes into the dining area and walks up and sits next to the table and whines until someone throws him a scrap. The diner had regulars that came in every day, so Milton was well known to them, and surprisingly, no one minded the huge furry beggar that came for breakfast almost every day. They all knew him by name. He was a big dog, but he was so gentle and loving too. Everyone loved him and laughed when he made his visits. It became a joke when Becky opened the screen door and Bob would pretend to get mad at her. Bob scolded her with a grin on his face. "What did you do, Becky? Did you let that bad dog in here again?" Becky would just giggle, and then so would everyone else, as Milton ran straight to his own cookie table for his morning snack. After Milton got his cookies, Becky would give him a big hug, and then Milton would lick her face before heading into the dining room to see what was for breakfast. Bob would grab the big dog and walk him across the street to give him back to Kate. She would have to keep the big dog in the house for the day until she could go buy another chain for the dog. Hopefully, she would find one that the big dog could not break soon. Between buying dog chains and replacing all the things the dog ate in the house when he was alone, they were spending a lot of money on that dog. Kate was glad Bob and Susan did not mind Milton breaking into the bakery every day. He really was a good dog. Even with all the money they spent on that silly dog, the whole family just loved him. Although obedience classes might come in handy, Kate thought while looking at the big silly dog, that would be money well spent if they could get that dog to actually behave, she thought. Milton looked at her with his head tilted and then turned and grabbed one of the kids' sneakers off the mat next to the door and ran with it. Kate went running after him, yelling, "That does it, Milton. You are going to obedience class, you bad dog." The end. Let's tell Miss Karen again, thank you again for sending us this book to read.
Thank you,
Thank you, Miss Karen.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
And please subscribe to our channel and like our video. Bye.
Bye.